Hey class, I hope you're doing well. Just wanted to touch base. It's been sort of quiet out there, so I know y'all are working on those theory and practice papers and the integrative family paper. And so I just want to touch base really quickly and share. So folks are still continuing to email me their topics or at least the subject of their papers, whether it be a case from your placement, whether it be a television show, whether it be a series. I'm going to say again, I don't think that a television show will suffice, but the decision is yours. What I am going to offer is that by Friday, if you would like to send me a video or an audio that outlines your subject, for your paper, as well as the two theories and, any potential concepts related to those theories. If you just want to give me a taste of what you're working on, then if you want to submit that by Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, then I'll turn it back around to you by Monday. But I am going to say that even prior to then, it really is important that you touch base with me with regard to, the case or the subject for your particular piece. And, people will send emails. Emails never quite capture things as well as I feel that, speaking on them can. And so, either way, if you're gonna send me something brief, and you want me to take a look at it, that's fine. Try and do so as early as possible. If you want to take advantage of the video or the audio, I'd say something in the range of 3 to 5 minutes. You can do that by Friday at 5 p.m. I'll turn it around to you no later than, let's say, Monday at 5 p.m. And the other thing that I'll say very quickly is that, one of the things that I think is important, and I know that sometimes when I'm, sort of struggling writing, I'll always go back to the directions, right? But the other thing that I think is important is that you go back and you look at some of the objectives of each week, right? Because that might help you in terms of giving you some insight as to things that you may need to cover. Because there's a theory, but there's also the book. And remember, we didn't have a lot of theory in the book, so we had to supplement it with some things. All right, and so, even when we're thinking about this week and week 12, some of the objectives for week 12 include describe the micro and macro practice relationship, describe macro intervention strategies. Now, to be honest with you, and this is just me, it's your paper, but I'm really thinking that with regard to this paper, we're only dealing with first order strategies here. I don't think the second order strategies and the type of change that's needed with a second order strategy would be appropriate for this paper. And again, I will keep saying it and saying it and saying it. I'm all about quality more than quantity. And so, when you're thinking about these interventions, by all means, please keep that in mind. It's not the number of things that you do, it's how well you explain them. And so then, again, going back to the chapter and thinking about even in chapter 15, what are some important concepts here? And of course, that first order and second order intervention or change strategies are important. There's some content here on cultural competency and being culturally relevant. Those are important things. Or even, let's say, for example, if I go back to, let's say, chapter 6, and I'm looking at the objectives there, and it talks about constructing reflective responses that respond to the client content and emotions, constructing further responses and knowing how to use them, constructing open-ended questions. So that's more so really rooted in direct practice. But even from this, we can learn a valuable lesson. And that's really to pay attention to the content. Pay attention to the content, the emotions, the reflections, the double-sided reflections, to make sure that what you believe to be true through your assessment, and eventually your intervention is rooted in what was said and what you see and the emotions. Sometimes even, the best practitioners can sort of go off of what they think is their practice wisdom instead of paying attention to what the client is actually communicating to them. All right? Even if we go back to, say, let's go back to week 8. And it talks about, groups and families. Reflect on the conclusions and ideals created in this course. Engage in assessing families at the beginning of the helping process. Assist families in enhancing communication and relational skills. And that's real, ladies and gentlemen, that's real. In particular, when we are looking at this particular chapter, and during week 8, the genogram was so very important. But what was also important were the readings from week 8. And if my memory serves me correctly, the readings, let me see, for week 8 involved, chapter 11, forming and assessing. And to be quite honest with you, the assessment, again, I'll say the assessment chapters are critical to me. I'll say again, that's the most important part of this assignment to me. Having a structure for your work. Are you assessing on the biopsychosocial? Are you assessing and adding the spiritual to that? What type of assessment are you doing, right? I think that that's an important piece. And, in looking this, and I'm really going back to let me be more specific with regard to the theory and practice paper. When you're assessing, right, what you assessed helps you determine what theory you're going to use. And what theory you're going to use helps you determine what intervention. So when I say assessment, what types of indicators did you have from your assessment that led you to use this theory, right? We don't use theory just because they sound good, right? We don't use them just because they're our go-to. But we do have to do some theory matching with our particular case. Or we could just do a theory assignment, right? All right? It wouldn't be a theory and practice paper, okay? So just in going back and thinking about, some of the content from some of our major chapters, in particular chapter 10 and chapter 11. And I know that right now, we're way up in chapter 15, but I really don't want you to forget, the client's perspective, group size, group structure, who's in the helping and giving and who's in the help-seeking roles. In other words, again, just notice how I'm going back and I'm, really talking about concepts that are in chapter 11, forming and assessing social work groups. And then I'm also looking at chapter 10 in terms of how we go about assessment, observing patterns of interaction. What are some other things? Even thinking about, was it chronic stress, acute stress, episodic stress that led you to use psychodynamic theory, right? Those are the types of pieces that I'm looking for. So, nothing too much new here. Don't want to throw too much on your plate. I guess the message that I want to leave you with today is take some time reflecting on the chapter content, in particular chapter 10 and chapter 11, okay? And also take some time to just go through Blackboard and reflect on some of the objectives, because oftentimes the objectives will allow us to, it just sort of brings us back to the space, right? I know that as practitioners, we can get caught up in that intervention. We want that intervention to work, but sometimes we need to go back and really look at the objectives. And in this case, I think that utilizing the objectives on Blackboard would be important. I'm going to say it again, along with chapters 10 and 11. All right, so we're going from what we observe, some of those things that are described in your text, to the decision that you made with regard to your theory, to how those things that you observe are sort of related. They're reflected in the concepts, right? They're reflected in the concepts and the theory. And you can do a little bit of that in the same way. And then you're moving on to that intervention. And again, I think that first level interventions are way more feasible. I wouldn't really mess around with those second level because we're talking about, changing the formation of the family. I think that that's about it. Videos or audios, you can send me a link or you can send me the actual video Friday, 5 o'clock. I'll turn around by Monday at 5 o'clock. Give me as much information as you can. Give it to me straight from the heart. The way that theory hit you, I want you to hit me with it. Well, metaphorically speaking. And other than that, I really do hope you have a great week. Beautiful weather this Monday. I hope your Monday went well. I look forward to seeing you guys and gals in office hours on Friday. Let's get some more participation there. We have a good old time on Fridays. Y'all come and join us. Take care. Talk to you soon. Peace.